Well, welcome to the Kavod Family Podcast. My name is Casey Wilson, Travis Shook, Justin Bohner, Danny Antoine. Good morning, gentlemen. How are you?
Morning. Good.
We're back, and we are starting the second section of this. It's really a four-part section. The first one that we went through was really about character, the man of God and his character, right? There was roughly 11 weeks, and that's a real introspective process. Spurgeon has this book that he put out to all of his students that were going through his seminary. It's called Lectures to My Students. In that opening chapter, that first chapter, he calls it the self-watch. And that's really kind of what we've been doing the last 11 weeks, like evaluating self, looking in the mirror, dealing with yourself, taking dominion of your own character. And now we're going to begin to process into another area, right? We're going to go first into the man of God and his household. For 3 weeks, we'll talk about that. That's what we're diving into. And then after that, we'll talk about other relationships and then the man of God and his Bible. Okay, we'll kind of close the last 3 weeks, the man of God and his word. So
isn't that kind of what it says there for Ezra in Ezra chapter 7? It's just an interesting little note to remember as men, especially as Christian men. Ezra chapter 7, verse 10. Ezra set his heart to study the law of the Lord and to practice it, and to teach his statutes and ordinances in Israel. That order. Know what God wants for you, young man, practice it, do it, and then open your mouth to tell other people. Many people just get a little bit of information and they run straight to, right? But you need that pruning, that introspective. That's why I think that first section that we've walked through of those internal qualities, looking at the word, being pruned, being chiseled away at like that block of marble into a statue, and then you go and you teach.
Yeah, and they seem like the I don't know. They seem, I don't want to use the word boring.
Sure.
That's not fair, right? But because there's not a strong relational experience, this isn't about me and my household, my wife and children. It's not about me and my guy friends and the world around me. This is really about me and my private life before the Lord. It causes you to press into that relationship with God, really to go to him, which is relational,
the hardest place.
Yeah, and deal with him. Let him evaluate you and go, God, prune me because I want to stand blameless and above reproach for others.
Yeah, I was listening to John Eldridge, the Wild at Heart guy. He's got a lot of really, really good stuff. But he was talking about we're in some ways we're too practically minded because we can so quickly access anything on the, like we don't have to stop and think about how to do anything. We can just go see how to do it, right? Like we don't have to wrestle with thinking through, feeling through something spiritually. And so practically applying this stuff, you have to look at it and go, okay, God, you need to start changing something inside of me that practically it's not like do A, B, and C as men what we like. Like that whole first section is like, God, you're doing like 99% of this, right? This sanctification process, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a mind job because as soon as you brought that up, I thought about the teenagers at the karate school. I'm constantly having to tell them my job right now over and over again is to teach you people how to think instead of constantly teaching you what to think. We're in a place that's all we do with these kids. That's all we do with people. Tell them what to think. Tell them what to think. And you get to the place where nobody can think for themselves. Basic ways that adults used to be able to take care of a child who was sick back in the day. Now it's like for the simplest thing.
Is that the coffee?
Yeah.
I'm right.
Thank you, John.
By the way, I just took a gulp of creamer. Didn't realize. Man.
Straight to the dome. That's that
terrible.
Sugar rush.
Sorry, Danny.
I tried not to interrupt you.
I saw your eyes go a little whoa.
Oh, man.
Oh, man. Well, let's double check. Is the record button on? Camera's on. We're good to go, right? Let's continue with this. Yes. Danny, you're talking about your kids.
Yeah,
right?
The fact of the matter is in not giving people the opportunity to think we're doing a disservice. So men in particular, when we don't do that, like you just said, we don't get the opportunity to wrestle through the issue.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the best solution is in the wrestling with it. You know what I'm saying? Because there's so much that comes out of it, and there's so much more. There's a lot more to pass down in the wrestling of it versus the instant answer.
But think about it. That's the end goal of it, right? Yeah. The end goal is not building the house or getting the black belt. It's the process along the way that you learn. But you only learn that from going through it, suffering, reevaluating, wanting to quit, going back, facing the fear.
So, but today, though, we're making people do the opposite. Yeah. So there's no more going through it. We're trying to soft pedal everything, make sure everybody's okay. And it's like, what do we do at that point?
Like, what if
create a generation of a bunch of soft dudes that just can't get it together?
What if the angel of the Lord just walked up and was like, just snap Jacob's hip, like, oh God, like, and he's just, what are you doing? You know, like if there wasn't the whole, like the wrestling and then the hip socket being snatched, you know, then all of a sudden he thinks back and remembers that whole wrestling process, which is that picture. You know, I think that's part of this whole first part of this podcast series is working through those things that are the internal wrestlings before you can actually step out and now walk.
Because you're not qualified to teach or lead someone in it if you yourself haven't been broken and submitted to Christ in it.
And this is the next thing. Yeah. After you, it's your spouse. That's the next.
It's important too for your loved ones, especially like if you got sons, man, and your daughters, to see you go through things, because they got to be able to see somebody who's going through it and see how the reaction of it is, right? I think about right now, you know, just started jujitsu, okay? I have a real unique opportunity right now to go through with you guys and my students, who some of them, they got their black belts from me in Kempo, but they're going to get their black belts with me now in jiu-jitsu, but they're getting to watch the whole process. They get to watch me struggle like anybody else. They see what comes good for me, what doesn't come good, how I react when I'm absolutely not getting something, right? How do I react when I'm stinking injured? I'd rather be in there. You know, they get to watch that because they've heard it for years, but now they get to.
Now they get to see
when
it,
the kids walk by me and whoa, you're a white belt. That's right, baby. You know what I'm saying? But for me, it's a badge of honor because I get to go through this process again. But more importantly, everyone that's been around me for all these years that have heard me talk, you're going to get to see me go through the same thing. It's no joke. All of us have to go through it together. We all got to go through the same thing. The moment somebody would want to strip that away from me, I don't want to have nothing to do with it. The reason why is because I'm not going to learn what I need to learn out of that. I don't need anybody to give anything to me.
Yeah.
Let me work for it.
That's good.
All right, so we're jumping into part 2, the man of God and his household. 3 parts in this. The first one being faithful. That is referencing the husband of one wife. The second episode we're going to do is called Dignified. This is about raising your children in submission with all dignity, children that are respectful, obedient to you as a leader and as a father. And then the last one, the third part of this, responsible. He must manage his own household well. Okay, so that's where we're going today. We're going to focus in on the first, the husband of one wife, a man that is faithful. Okay, that's where we're going to start. Let's dive into this, because just to know what's really cool about this, and I think this is maybe a good place to start. When it comes to leadership, we always like to stack things straight up to see who's right on the top, like where does authority really come down from, right? And when it comes to a household, God has made the husband the head of the wife as far as responsibility and weight, right? But when you look at this text, the way it describes the household, it doesn't place him as a tyrant. And this is what I mean. When you look at keeping your children in submission, right? Children that are respectful, that's a real leadership role. That's a ruling and a training and a leading over, right? When it talks about managing your household, even that language is managerial, right? Like responsibility and tasks and everything there. When it comes to your relationship with your wife, it doesn't put it like that. It says, you be faithful. We're not even going to talk about her right now. You be faithful. That's how we're going to deal with this. So when it comes to your household, gentlemen, we are the ones that have to lead and assume 100% responsibility for the sake of our household. And it begins with our wives.
Yeah, but he gives us the parallel for it. He didn't just say for you as a husband to be the head of the wife. He told you to be the head of the wife as Christ is the head of the church.
Yes.
So now you cannot get being the head of the wife if you don't know how is Christ the head of the church. And if your idea of Christ is solely what you've heard from others, you only have a version of him. So what you need to do is get in that word and understand truly who Jesus Christ is. Who is he to the church? What did he do for the church?
Yeah.
Why was the church so important to him? How did he treat the church? All those questions, honestly, are answered in the first 4 books of the New Testament: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. You can get the whole thing right there.
Yeah.
We can so
exactly
easily
what he did.
We can so easily overlook that. Like, truly, if you don't know how he loves and cares for the church, you're never going to be equipped to be a husband. It would be like you telling me to go teach your black belts. I'm going to fake being a black belt today. Like it's that skewed. Like I don't even know what foot for, I don't know anything. So like it's imperative to get in here and to understand his heart as a father, how he looks at things when people don't receive him, who are angry, who sin against him, who follow other gods. Like the list is endless of what we do to him, but he gives us a recipe, a formula of how he solves it, what he does, how he loves, how he disciplines, how he rebukes, and like he shows us. But if you're not here, you have no chance.
Yeah.
It's very much when Jesus calls Peter and his disciples, he says to them, "Follow me." Well, that declaration, "Follow me," it's announced every morning when you wake up. It's announced every day for the rest of your life.
Yes.
It is what we say, that is Christianity, right? And so to be faithful is not necessarily like, hey, start this in a year, we'll call you faithful. It means today be faithful, tomorrow be faithful, in a year over time be faithful, like grow in this faithfulness to your family.
Yeah.
Like let it be the marker of your life.
So practically speaking for that, be faithful, be faithful. Jesus was very faithful to us. He's always very faithful to the church. So if we're looking at like, what does faithful look like? It's not just saying don't cheat on your wife. It's really saying she's the apple of your eye at all times. You know, the way that Christ loves us, he loves us with a really deep intensity, right? And the way he explains it is the Father loves him and he loves him with a certain intensity. He turns around now and loves us with the exact same intensity that the Father loves him. Yeah. Then he has an expectation that now we're supposed to love each other with the same intensity that Jesus loves us, which is the same intensity that God loves Jesus. So you cannot understand even love without understanding how is it that God is loving right now. Because if you understand how he loves and you realize that's the way that we're supposed to love, that eliminates most of your arguments right there with anybody, including your wife. If you just understand
scales,
that.
There's no even, there's no balance.
No.
You're faithful.
Well, that's kind of what that picture is from the beginning. I mean, from the beginning of the whole Bible. Why does marriage exist? Well, it's like anything in Scripture. There's tiers, there's levels to it. There's a immediate application, and there's micro versus macro. There's like on the small scale, it matters to reproduce. It matters because it's not good for man to be alone. But then on this macro scale, you get through all this in Ephesians chapter 5. Men, Ephesians 5:22-33, you should really, really know this passage very well. This is a passage on how husbands should love their wives, how that relationship should be viewed. And it says at the end of this, after quoting Genesis, where it says, "For this reason a man shall leave his father and mother and shall be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh." That's where we get this two becoming one language that we hear in marriage vows all the time. He says after that, "This mystery is great." I didn't think it was that much of a mystery. The two become one. But what that's meaning is, no, you're not seeing how much you two become one. Like it's a mystery because you really become one. He says, this mystery is great, but I'm speaking with reference to Christ and the church. So now you have to drop back and look at this whole picture and say the whole reason, I mean, marriage, like you're not going to be married in heaven. That's what it says. Like, because we are the bride of Christ, right?
But you will be one.
Yes, absolutely.
With Christ.
So
and
then
one
what's
with the
this
people
picture
of God.
here on earth is the fact of, I think that really hits it on the head when you say you have to see the way that Christ and the church relate to each other to understand marriage. Because again, exactly, Jesus heard publicly his Father say, "You're my son, listen to him. This is my son, hear him, I'm well pleased," right? He sees his son at his baptism. Jesus recognizes his identity in the Father. And then he goes out, and every single decision that he makes the decision is from God, the Father. He said, "I only do and I only say what the Father tells me." So everything he ever does is what the Father has told him, and he's doing all of that on behalf of the bride.
Despite how we treat him.
Yes, absolutely. He's doing everything on behalf of the bride. When he gets up and doesn't sin, When Jesus continues every day to live sinlessly, that's because his Father has told him, this is what you've come to do, is to live for the bride, right? When he's had to say hard things to his disciples, when he has to have difficult conversations with them, when he has to tell them, you can't drink this cup that I'm going to drink, that's on behalf of them. That's on behalf of the bride. Everything that he does is coming from the Father to him, and he's living it out. His job was to live and work on behalf of the bride. That's what we miss. We think, okay, now you're telling me I got to be faithful. You're telling me I got to be responsible for my wife and for my children, but why? Like, why? Because this is your purpose for being here on earth, is for God to produce glory and to reproduce for the sake of the
Really,
kingdom.
he's
right?
reproducing himself in us.
Sure.
He says, this is a great mystery, but I speak concerning Christ in the church. When I watch Christ, it taught me how not to be reactive like through my flesh, but to learn how to be reactive as a spirit. The way I saw that was with the woman caught in the adulterous relationship. Okay. And then you look at his reaction to all the other people. It was the same thing. You know what he never does? He never harbors anything. Even with her, as the accusers left, and he asked her, where are your accusers? She said, basically they're gone. He said, okay, then you go as well. Go and sin no more. But when he said that, when I got out of it, when he said that, it was done. You see what I'm saying? Like, there was no harboring anything after that.
On his part.
Yeah, on his.
I've forgiven.
For him, it's
I'm going
done.
to pay. And
So which means it
paid.
taught me how to discipline through love.
Think of
That
how
means when I tell the kids I'm done with something, like, it's over. Just because I discipline you, we're not going to keep revisiting this.
But
It's
how does he do that? Going back to what you said, he does that because he's only saying what the Father tells him to say, and he's only doing what the Father tells him to say. So he's never reactionary based on how I'm unfaithful, unloving,
In reference to the bride.
Exactly.
Yes.
So my bride, if I'm copying his model, Jesus' model for the church, if I'm doing that, if Lydia is mean and rude and awful and sinful and hates me and argumentative, all of those attributes, how I am to respond to her should never change, because I should only do what he's saying and respond how he's saying, which he showed us what he did for the church.
Yeah.
It was never reactionary.
You see, when you brought that up, I thought about my wife. She's going to love this. We saw something online. We decided we're going to settle all our arguments this way. Anytime we get upset, we got to get in front of each other. She got to put her forehead on my forehead, and we got to try to talk while we're standing there like this.
That works.
Very hard to not.
Well,
You can't keep a straight face.
Well, I remember the first
All
time.
the hard-headed arguments go away quickly, and you're like, let's stop this.
I remember the first time
It does cause you to kiss your wife and move forward in life, doesn't it?
I sat down and read through Song of Solomon a few years ago, and yes, it's a incredible book, looking at it from the perspective of a husband to a wife, the way that a husband should pursue his wife. They should view each other. I even wrote down the way there's a passage where the groom is talking to the bride, and I'm thinking about my daughter, not in that relationship, but when it says, who is this that grows like the dawn, as beautiful as the full moon, as pure as the sun, as awesome or terrifying as an army with banners? I'm praying that for my daughter, that she's beautiful and pure and horrifying to people that don't follow Jesus. You know what I mean? But that's just a side note. But I remember reading it, and this one verse, I just stopped and sat back in my chair and just wept, because I was thinking about, okay, again, on the micro, this is the groom to his bride. On the macro, this is Christ to his bride. Yeah. Right, that's the picture here. It is Christ speaking to the church. This is the way he views us. And there's just this little line where it says, Song of Solomon 4:7, you're altogether beautiful, my darling, and there's no blemish in you. Right? The way that Jesus sees us is, now that we are clothed with righteousness, he sees us blemish free in that moment, in every moment that he looks at us. And that crushed me, because I recognize, man, God, the problem is the way I see myself, not the way you see me, right? Like you see all this crap too, but yet you see
other people the way you see yourself.
Sure.
Instead of the way that he sees.
Exactly. And so now if I recognize that he sees me this way, then I need to see her that way. And now that unlocks the ability for me to do what Ephesians 5 says. Because our concern when we read Ephesians 5 is, well, what do I get in return?
Yeah.
Do I get submission in return? Do I get love reciprocated to me in return? But if I look at her and I say, you are altogether beautiful, my love, and there's no blemish or spot in you, and I'm going to love you and I'm going to pursue you. And if you never love me back, I'll still do it because that's what I've been called to do. You don't love me back the way that I need to be loved. You don't even do what this part of the Bible says you're supposed to do. That's not my concern.
That's
right?
what it looks like to see each other through God's eyes.
Yes.
If
Yeah.
we do that, that changes humanity,
Yep.
period.
Exactly.
If you learn to see each other through God's eyes instead of seeing people through your lens of how you see yourself.
What's crazy is Christ took that further. He willingly died knowing some would never choose him.
Yes.
Yeah.
He willingly,
He
that would be like
willingly
me
got tortured to death.
going to the
knowing.
cross for Lydia, knowing she might not ever look my way or care. And he did it with joy.
Yeah, because he did what he was commanded to do. Yes, I know he is God. He went of his own will. He did all of these things. Yes, I'm not mixing up Jesus Christ's humanity and deity and all of that. But there's a reality that Christ did as he was told in the face of who he was doing it for, not believing him. Like that he died with only John and a few of the women there.
Yeah.
Right?
I think the fair thing is to say, in regards to his people, in the way that he relates to his people, his bride, his faithfulness to his bride, he's looking upon a people that are paid for, cleansed, washed, and loved. We do see him corrective, rebuking, you know what I mean, to a people that are opposed and resistant and proud and arrogant. We see him that way.
Yeah.
And so in regards to his people, that's where the word faithfulness is so good, because it's not that he's just equally faithful to all, to like all. And you aren't. I'm not equally this to all women, right? That doesn't make it faithful to one.
Yeah.
It's that to his people and to his bride, he was this. And watching that example and learning that, man, look, if you're not pursuing Christ, you can't do this consistently to your own family. You can't lead like this and love like this to your family, right? When we get off the rails from this, when we get into a place where we're tired, overworked, exhausted, self-focused, selfish, whatever it might be, that takes you from a place to where you're not thinking the best, seeing your wife through the lens or the eyes of your, the Lord. When you start to get in the place where you're vexed by the things of this world, by the flesh, that's really what it is, right? The frustrations, the bills, the cycles, all the responsibilities, right? It really comes down to, it's not about her, it's about me and my relationship with God. That's the premise of this portion. When it's calling us to be faithful, it's saying, look, you can do this because of what I've done for you. If you and I are right, if you're following me, you'll be able to do this consistently. And when you're off, it's not because of her, it's because of us.
Your disconnection with him.
Yeah.
Like, so to hit that, the bills, stress, anxiety, depression, like Christ is king over all of that. So none of the weightiness and the heavy things that men carry gives you an out to not love her the way he's called you to. None of it does. But you're ill-equipped to do it if you have depression or anything, if you're not fixated on Christ. If bills become on your throne and you're just staring at them all day, you're going to fail. So what I'm trying to say is you could be, your hand in life could be terrible, but if Christ is your focal point, you will be a good husband.
Yeah.
So no bad bills and debt, none of that is an out or a reason why you're too stressed to be a good husband or a good father or anything.
Well,
you have to stay focused on him.
They're reasons to, it's like hooks in the flesh. It's reasons to pull and cause us to put our mind not on the things above where Christ is, but to put our mind on the things of earth, right? It's reason to do that. It's not justifiable reason. We have to.
Yeah, they're real reasons. They're
real
just not
reasons.
good ones.
And that's what we see in David in his testimony when you get to Psalm 51. The awesome thing is he doesn't spend the time when he finally confesses his sin and turns and repents and walks through all of that. Psalms 51 is not about, this is what my wife did.
Uriah
this
is
is about
never
what
mentioned.
was lagging. It's not about
Sex
that.
is never mentioned.
No, it's about this.
Restore to me the joy of your salvation.
Right? And so, because he comes to a conclusion where he knows all of my misbehavior is the brokenness of this vertical relationship. And if I could get that right, then I would course correct and start to become the man I'm meant to be.
And I've heard, and I'm going to hit this from a slightly different angle just because I've heard a lot of men talk about it. And I've been in that headspace before too, that the weight that you carry, they don't carry. And that's another temptation or reason for an excuse to not love her well. You're carrying all of this. You're working this, doing this, providing for everybody. But Christ literally had the weight of every human's life on his shoulders. And he still responded the way God told him to. The Father told him to.
Yeah, it ultimately, and I've been there, right? We
Yeah,
all get
absolutely.
to a point where we self-pity, self-wallow, self-focus, right? And it causes us to justify little behaviors or misses. And the truth is, it's just petty immaturity. It's just sin. That's all it is, right? Whether it be lust or whatever it would be at the root, it's just foolish sin.
Well, one of the things
you
that
started each one of those with self-pity, something. So what did Christ say in order to follow him? You was what? Deny yourself. He didn't say deny the world, deny your past, deny all the things that happen. No, deny yourself, because self is the problem.
Yeah.
That's the issue. And once you deny yourself, then you can see clearly to be as Christ is. He has an expectation for us to do this. Now, why would he expect us to do something
can't do it,
if it wasn't possible? It's
Well,
possible.
yeah.
That's how we know that. It's because he said to do it. Now, we should be motivated to be like, man, that's awesome. If you're saying I can be like that, like you, and you're saying like right now, like he says, as he is, so are we in this world. As he is currently right now, so are we in this world. I'm pretty certain if he meant something else, he would have wrote that very differently.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so to me, that's motivating to know, like, okay. And that's also something kind of like as a dad, like my dad believes so much in me to say that this is who you are, right? This is what I created you to be. And he believes in me as his son to say, and I believe this is what you're going to do. I feel a responsibility now to my dad to live up to that. Like there's, you feel a sense of pride with your earthly father. Why would you not feel that much more with the Father?
Yeah, there's that twofold reality. We'll call them realities. We are made coram Dei in the image of God, like we live our life before the face of God, right? And if we were 100% perfectly focused on him and him alone, we would walk in his image and be faithful to that, right? And then you have the testimony of, 4,000 years of history, right? And I think Vodi Bakum, he makes that statement and says it probably best. He sums up everything when it comes to sin and lust, and when it comes to sexual sins. And he says, look, if the wisest man fell to sexual temptation, and if the strongest man fell to sexual temptation, and if the godliest of men falls to sexual temptation, who am I to assume that I'm not going to fall or be tempted?
Great point, man.
And you go, you have to live with this constant watch of your flesh. Put it to death, right?
Kill it.
Reckon yourself. That's that great, like Romans, the whole book opens up of just these declarations of what God has done for us, what Jesus has done for us, facts about life, just theological statements. And then in Romans 6, it switches and it begins to be this instruction. But the first instruction he gives is he says, reckon yourselves dead to sin and alive to Christ. That's where the beginning of obedience is always reckoning. Consider yourself dead to sin, alive to Christ. Then if you can do that, if we can do that, here I am. I'm dead to whatever pull, whatever has hooked me, whatever is there. I have to die to that. I'm alive to him. Now I can get my task. Now I can get my call. Now I can get my commission, right? Yeah. If I don't kill this, then I'm gonna try, but I'm gonna be like walking with a limp and veer quickly, right?
Yeah, isn't part of the problem here, because again, to go back to this whole big picture in the Bible of marriage existing for the macro level purpose of showing Christ and his faithfulness to the church, isn't that why it's so hard for us as men, because of the way we get so radically deformed by the world, the flesh, and the devil apart from Christ? why that is something that we have to focus on so much is because at that point, that is the most important point in our lives. Like that is the thing that we're doing that makes us the most like we were created to be, is when we are loving our wives and only our wives, and we are chasing after her joy, which in turn makes us joyful, and in turn makes our children joyful, and all of that glorifies God. If there's one place that the world and the flesh and the devil want to divide and attack, it's that place, because that's the place where you are being Christ-like the most, is when you are loving the bride and giving yourself up for her. That's Galatians 2:20. So who loved me and gave himself for me.
So let's crucify the flesh. Let's follow this.
Yes.
What happens if a man is trying to build? And when we say build, we're talking about coming out of your youth. You enter into the age of maturity and manhood, responsibility, 18, 19, 20, 21. You begin to start your work, start your business, start life. You get married, you start having children. You grow in responsibility. People begin to trust you. Like that's the process of life, right? What happens when a man tears down his own household? What happens there? There's nothing more damaging, like you're saying, than when a man fails his wife. And this is why, because this is what happens.
And
right?
I think that's one of the biggest issues that men, we're all men that have failed in different ways and to different degrees. But one of the main issues I think with men is pride, and pride is bedfellows with shame. And many men get filled with shame when they start hearing about what a man should be when you look at Jesus. Because when you fail, you're like the devil and not like Jesus. And when you look at your life and you see that your marriage is in shambles and that your wife is unhappy, and that even maybe your wife is letting her heart go astray to another man, and you start to see all these things, the hardest thing is that shame will come in, because you will realize all of that is my responsibility. And I have failed her. And shame will come over you. That will be the temptation. That will be the thing that tempts you. And that will drive you to either killing yourself in a field like Judas, or weeping and jumping out of the boat and repenting and coming back to Christ like Peter, right? One of those is a man that will end up being faithful. The other one is not. And so I think shame is when we recognize the bills are piled up to the ceiling because you were not faithful to your wife in the way you stewarded your money, right? Your children act like idiots because you were not faithful to your wife and children, because you're not faithful to them by telling them no and by disciplining them out of love. You're not faithful to your wife by telling her no when she wants to order things on Amazon every day, right? Like you're not being faithful.
Sacred cow.
Right? but isn't that what, I mean, Jesus, Mike, we think, like, how many men are just operating out of the flesh, and now when they do that, then they see, okay, now I'm filled with shame because I know I was doing the wrong thing. Well, turn to Christ and repent and come back and be faithful. Christ wasn't ever operating out of the flesh. He didn't flip over the tables because he wanted to let off some steam, right? He flipped over the tables for the bride, to defend her, to flip over the tables of the people who were leading her astray. Yeah. Like, we don't do that as men, right? We don't do that as men. We don't flip over tables for the sake of her. We do it for the sake of self, because so often we're idolatrous. We build idols of ourselves and of our things. I mean, if you take the stance that I take, and Revelation was written in the 60s, and actually 1 John is probably one of the last books of the Bible, that means the Bible doesn't end with Maranatha. It ends with, little children, keep yourselves from idols. That's how the Bible ends, because that's the story of the people of God, is idolatrous, forming idols, as Calvin said. The heart is a perpetual factory of idols, right? It's a story of people who make idols out of everything, out of that thing, out of anything, and God being faithful to them, Jesus Christ being faithful to them in spite of that, right? And that's what we have to be as men, not those walking, whimpering, injured dogs filled with shame who are like, well, you don't know what I've done. Yeah, I do. But I've read this and I've lived this. I do know what you've done, but there's more grace and mercy in Christ than there is sin in you.
Yes.
That's the whole, I think Thomas or William Perkins said that, the Puritan, right? There's more grace in him than there is sin in you. Now, quit whimpering and repent and help come to him so he can make you faithful,
And
right?
when,
Like that.
And when it comes to building, I just keep using that phrase, building life, because as men, we are constantly building. When it comes to building, there's nothing that will tear down your own household like sinning against your wife. There's just not, right? You could get behind on bills and your karate kids would forgive you.
Yeah, but this is totally different than everything else.
Yeah.
And because of the nature of the sin too, the sexual sin is it's the one sin that you commit against your own body. There's a lot that Christ is trying to teach us in that. And for men, where's the place that Satan stalks us the most every day? In the body.
Yeah.
How much have we reproduced the sexual society today? Mm-hmm. It's on every billboard, every screen, every advertisement, it's everywhere. It's in the church, it's out of the church, because Satan knows. So if I can just attack this crazy meat suit, we got him.
Divide him and her. Yep.
Yeah, if I can just get him right there, we got him. Because he knows that will never, ever stop at the man. What most men neglect to realize is when you mess up, and not just in this area, when you mess up, you have to understand it impacts a lot of people. We have the tendency of thinking if I mess up against one person, that means that was just one. No, there's a trail of bodies that are left behind, whether you can see them or not. There's always a trail of bodies. And I think as men, if we understood that, we take our responsibility as leaders and as men very differently. A lot more seriously, you know what I mean? And a lot more to heart to realize, no, if I do this to you right now, man, this is going to trickle down. It's going to have a lot more of effect than just on Justin right now. You know what I mean? And if I understand that and I realize it's my responsibility, I got to carry that weight. That's the next thing. Let these things be weighty in your mind and in your heart. Because when it's weighty, it causes you to think differently and react differently. When it's just made light of, you don't care.
Proverbs 5, 6, and 7 all warn against adultery. So Proverbs 5, verse 7, it says, "And now, O sons, listen to me, and do not depart from the words of my mouth. Keep your way from her, and do not go near the door of her house, lest you give your honor to others, and your years to the merciless. Lest strangers take their fill of your strength, and your labors go to the house of the foreigner, and at the end of your life you groan, when your flesh and your body is consumed, and you say, how I hated discipline, and my heart despised reproof. I did not listen to the voice of my teachers or incline my ear to my instructors. I am at the brink of utter ruin in the assembled congregation." There's 3 chapters warning and also encouraging you to delight in the wife of your youth.
So let's close with that. Let's give some application. Help the men that are listening. Help the young men, maybe that aren't married yet. Learn self-control now before they get married, right? How do you begin to prepare? And then also when you're already married, how do you remain faithful to the wife of your youth? And do that faithfully. Let's give application for them and close this thing out.
So to the latter, how to remain faithful. God gave me like one little sentence that's always been my mantra, and I've tried to teach young men, especially new in their marriage, is you choose God and her daily. And it's that simple. You stay fixated on Christ. He's first. And then second, you choose her daily. You pursue her daily. You love her daily. And if you do that order, you can't help but start to look at her and see her the way he sees her. You had said it earlier. But look at him and pursue him daily, and look at her and pursue her daily.
Yeah.
I mean, for the young man, I think as someone who I was sexualized from a very young age, like literally the first time I looked at pornography was like 8 years old, like the youngest, like younger than my oldest kid, And so from a very young age, that warped my mind and changed my brain chemistry. It really does. And there's 2 sins in the Bible that will take you straight to hell. and it's loving money, and it's sexual sin. Read Proverbs. I'm not saying anyone is beyond salvation. That's not what I'm saying. But there are two directions. Jesus talks about money a lot, and he says it will take you to hell. The love of money, I'm not saying money, the love of money.
Yeah.
And sexual sin will take you to hell. The sexual woman in the Proverbs 5, 6, and 7, her steps lead to Sheol. They take you to hell. Why? Because again, this is at the heart of Jesus and his bride in this picture of marriage and the way it's supposed to be. And it will warp your brain and it will change your brain. But thanks be to God, science has caught up with the Bible and told us now it can be fixed. Yeah. Neuroplasticity, rewiring your brain, right? Renewing your mind is what Romans 12 says, right? Like this can be done, but you have to, again, choose her and not that. You have to choose her that you don't even know, because marriage is so covenantal that you don't understand that when you're 17 years old and you're watching porn in the bathroom, you should mentally think about you're bringing your future wife into the bathroom with you when you do that. Man, now that's married, you should think about you're bringing your wife and your kids into the bathroom with you while you look at porn, to look at porn with you, because that's the way you're connected to your wife, and that's the way you're the head of that family, right? That's the way God views you over that family, and you two are such one flesh, you and your bride, that when you eat like crap and when you live like crap and when you watch crap, you intake junk all the time, she's doing it too.
Therefore,
but when
making them unwilling participants.
Yes, and it's destroying this relationship. And if you, young man who's not even there yet, you're destroying that future relationship. You don't, that faceless woman who you'll one day be married to, that you don't know who she is right now, you're wrecking that future relationship right now, right? That one you'll be in one flesh with by the things you're intaking, right? By the way you're living, right? But you have to live like Jesus Christ, who kept himself pure, who stayed away from wickedness, who beheld good things, who loved and served other people, right? You need to labor to become the kind of man that when you look at this Bible and you see a godly woman, be the kind of man who that kind of woman would want to marry. Because a lot of guys want a certain kind of woman, but they're not the kind of man that woman would ever give a time of day to, right? She doesn't want some idiot douchebag gym bro, like hustle culture guy. Nobody wants that kind of guy.
Heard that, fellas?
Like, nobody wants that guy. Whores do. I'm sorry. They do. That's what the whole internet culture is doing right now. Girls that are into those kind of guys are not the kind of girls that you find in this book, right? But godly men, faithful men, one-woman men who get up every day and who are faithful to God and pursue her. Those men, the kind of women that you find in this book and Proverbs chapter 31, those are the kind of men that these women want.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Danny, let me read this, and then maybe you can close this out. Does that work? So here's some thoughts, and I'm going to read this just because I think practical. If you're listening and you're going, okay, give me something. What do I do right now? Pull over right now, grab a pen and paper, read this. This is 10 guardrails that Jim Ramos comes up with. That's Dialed In Ministry. Mm-hmm. And I read these guardrails and I thought, that's pretty good. That's practical. That's some
Men
good
in the
advice.
Arena. That's his stuff. It's really good.
So he came up with this list, and I this is just abbreviating most of these. Number 1, never develop an emotional connection with the opposite sex. Never be alone with the opposite sex. Never speak negatively about your spouse with the opposite sex. That's good, right? There's that.
Oh yeah.
That
Honor.
is
Yeah.
yes, honor,
my
cover.
God.
It's your own body, right?
The old ball and chain. Yeah, don't do that.
No,
Yeah.
kill that. Number 4, never compliment the opposite sex in a way that would elicit an emotional response. You're fishing there. You're trying to be feeding your own desires, right? Number 5, never have counsel or mentoring that goes on with the opposite sex. I think that's good advice.
Mm-hmm.
Just consider that. Never make physical contact beyond a simple handshake or a casual side hug with the opposite sex. Number 7, never make foul, rude, coarse, or sexual comments to the opposite sex. Number 8, never give gifts from you, but rather from us. Right? So wherever I go, I am Erica's husband. Wherever she goes, she's Casey's wife. And so we go together. Number 9, never engage in personal details without your spouse present if you're speaking to the opposite sex. And then he put number 10, never assume your spouse is living by the same standards. You know, be honest with them, check in, ask them how they're doing, grab their phone, read their text, that kind of thing. Just cover your own household. I think those are good, practical guardrails that you could go through every day as a man. And if you did that, even more so, if you go back and listen to the first 11 qualities and characteristics that we went through about being above reproach, about being self-controlled, you can't achieve this unless you go back to those qualities, right? Unless you go back and you look over these early standards that we talked about when it comes to being upright and pious, respectable, a lover of good, self-controlled, mature, not a drunk, generous. Those are the qualities. You pursue that, chase that, let these guardrails be in place, check on them every now and then. You do those things and you really can remain faithful to your spouse. And as a builder, I'll just put this last one, as a builder of a home, built many homes, your wife and you are the key pieces in your home. To tear down your marriage is like removing a corner piece of that house that begins to fall, right? Now, Christ thankfully can come and jack that thing up and put that post back in place. He really can. But you have to see yourselves, you and your wife, the health of your own marriage, the health of your relationship as most important to everything else that you do. The wisest counsel I've probably ever received, I asked a guy once, how'd you raise such good children? And you could go further and say, how'd you create such a good business? How'd you become such a respectable person? How'd you stay out of debt? How'd you do this and do that? How'd you do this? His response about children was, I loved their wife faithfully. And I think
their mom.
I loved their mother faithfully. And I think the key to your business, how do you become such a great karate instructor? Love Mary faithfully. How do I be faithful to the CrossFit gym that I've built and everything that we're doing? Love Lydia faithfully, right? That has to become this, like Justin said, God first, her second, or what you said, God first, her second. Those are the markers of my life.
Lest your minds be corrupted from the simplicity that is found in Jesus Christ. You keep it simple. You keep your eyes on the prize, and you don't look at it any other way. In other words, I live every day more conscious of Jesus than I am conscious of what I shouldn't do. I live more every day conscious of who he created me to be rather than all the things I shouldn't do. And when I focus on the things I shouldn't do, I'll become those things. It's no different than the person who spends a lifetime saying, I'm never going to be like my dad. And you do everything possible not to become like your dad, and instead you become a replica of him on steroids, right? Don't live conscious of what you shouldn't do. Live more conscious of who he created you to be. You're aspiring to be that, you go after that. The more I keep my eyes on the prize, the more he keeps me focused on what I'm supposed to be focused on. The more I take my eyes off the prize, very easy. The more I'll drift away easily from the things that I'm supposed to be, focused on. Yeah. So the answer is Jesus Christ, period. Keep your focus on him.
That's good. Well, thank you for listening to the Kavod Family Podcast. Look, faithfulness is in front of us. If you've offended or hurt the woman that you love or the husband that you're with, go to them, ask for forgiveness, heal those wounds, and begin to walk forward in the oneness that you really do have. God can heal, God can restore, God can redeem so much. He really is faithful to us. He's the glue inside of our marriages. He's the one that holds this thing together. So with that, enjoy.